So Square reported earnings yesterday, and yesterday was actually a very weird day. Down 10% on the day, then after hours up 10%, and now at the time of making this video, it's up 5%. So roller coaster day for Square shareholders or block shareholders. Still, the name doesn't fit. So we're going to discuss the earnings report. At the end of this video, as always, we're going to talk about some crucial points that were mentioned during the earnings call. Overall, it was a miss. All right, they missed on earnings per share by just a couple of cents, and they missed on revenue as well. So how come the stock is up? Well, we're going to discuss that in this video. So let's jump straight into the earnings report. So first up, gross profit, which to be honest is very, very good. Now we got some numbers, obviously excluding Afterpay and including Afterpay. Just for the sake of it, we're going to use the 2-year CAGR. We're also getting some 3-year CAGRs here and there, but let's start. Gross profit up 34% year over year to $1.29 billion, excluding Afterpay that grew 25%, and on a 2-year CAGR, 55%. Why do they use a 2-year CAGR? Well, because you're getting the bigger picture here, since some aspects of the business gained a lot of traction thanks to the pandemic. At first it was Cash App, then it was the seller side and less Cash App, so it's better overview like that. Then net income loss, $204 million, big increase quarter over quarter, big loss also year over year, but we're going to have a look at that in just a bit. There is an explanation, and yes, it also has to do with Afterpay. Then we have Cash App gross profit, that's up 26% to $624 million, excluding Afterpay, that's up 17%. On a 2-year CAGR, 85%, and that's very, very strong. You can see each and every quarter on a 2-year CAGR, strong growth there. And that's very important because, well, the Cash App ecosystem is growing, right? It's still very young, growing. They're adding new features each and every quarter, expanding the availability outside the United States as well. Not that much, but a little bit. So 2-year CAGR, quite nice. Square gross profit up 41% year over year, makes sense, to $661 million. And then adjusted EBITDA of $195 million. That's up quarter over quarter as well, but down year over year. And after the summary, they talk about the Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin adoption, engagement with Bitcoin, sending Bitcoin to each other. They're now using the Lightning Network as well, which makes it much faster and cheaper to send it one to another. But then again, the Lightning Network is centralized. Remember that. Overall, they think it's going well. Obviously, the Bitcoin revenue year over year is down heavily, but that's going to be discussed in just a bit. But first, I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investment. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 free stock picks from their popular product, Stock Advisor. Now, Stock Advisor has beat the market by more than 4x. So all you have to do is go to fool.com/couchinvestor to get your free 10 stock picks now. All right, this Square ecosystem, and now that includes obviously the integration of Afterpay. So they say here that they've seen nearly 13,000 Square merchants adopt and process buy now pay later sales through the first quarter, which grew Afterpay active sellers by 10%. Now I always like to look at this graph right here because, well, it obviously makes sense for them to go after bigger clients. So growing up market, you can see here, mid-market sellers continue to show strong momentum in the first quarter with gross profit up 47% year over year, outpacing total Square gross profit. Mid-market sellers have been leveraging Square Savings, launched in July 2021, to set aside funds for the future. In the first quarter, mid-market sellers were twice as likely to fund their accounts soon after opening compared to the average seller using Square Savings. And obviously on a 2-year CAGR, there's a huge increase here, right? Because 2020, pandemic, during the pandemic, maybe a lot of people started using Cash App, started looking at other options when they can reopen their business, started to adopt it, and now it's just growing and growing because, well, it's a great product, great ecosystem, so why the heck not? Now, they're also expanding globally. Yes, I know we've talked about this a lot on this channel. Square, Cash App not growing that much internationally. So gross profit in markets outside of the United States are now 12% of Square's gross profit to $78 million. Obviously, this includes Afterpay as well. But they mentioned something during the earnings call with regards to expanding internationally, so we're going to leave that for the end. And here we go a bit more into detail. So total net revenue was $3.96 billion in the first quarter, down 22% year over year. Ooh, red flag, red flag. No, this was driven by a decrease in Bitcoin revenue. So as you can see right here, Bitcoin revenue was $1.73 billion in the first quarter of 2022, down 51% year over year. Bitcoin's gross profit was $43 million, or approximately 3% of Bitcoin revenue. Usually it's around 2%, so not such a big deal. But if you exclude Bitcoin from the total net revenue, in the first quarter that was $2.23 billion, and that's actually up 44% year over year. To me, obviously, this makes more sense because I'm not investing in this just to look at the Bitcoin revenue because, well, Bitcoin revenue doesn't really make that much sense. As we've seen, 3% of Bitcoin revenue, gross profit, to me, that's nothing. Again, excluding Bitcoin, gross profit was $1.29 billion in the first quarter, up 34% year over year and up 55% on a 2-year CAGR basis. Now, GPV grew to $43.5 billion in the first quarter. That's up 31% year over year. Transaction-based gross profit as a percentage of GPV was 1.18% in the first quarter. That's down 12 basis points year over year and flat quarter over quarter. Now, obviously, this does not include Afterpay because buy now, pay later products are recognized as subscription and services-based revenue and not transaction-based revenue. Now talking about Cash App's ecosystem. First of all, it's a bit weird that there is like nothing on the sides here. Like it's pretty white page with just a bunch of text in it, which is unusual for Block or Square. Anyways, in the first quarter, as we've seen, Cash App generated $2.46 billion of revenue and $624 million of gross profit. Now, if you exclude Bitcoin and Afterpay, Cash App revenue was $667 million, up 26% year over year and 73% on a 2-year CAGR basis. Now they say here they've seen strong engagement across the broader ecosystem of products. They saw inflows improve in February and March compared to January, driven primarily by macroeconomic recovery and the benefit of tax refund. We also get some more details about the first month of the second quarter, as always. But first, the net income loss, right? So that's $240 million in loss, which was impacted by certain expenses related to Afterpay, including $42 million of a one-time deal and integration-related expenses, $31 million of amortization of acquired intangible assets, and $66 million of a one-time accelerated stock-based compensation, offset by an unrealized gain of $50 million from the revaluation of equity investments. And excluding these items, net loss was $114 million. With all that said, they ended the first quarter with $6.9 billion, 6.9, in available liquidity with $6.3 billion in cash, cash equivalents, restricted cash, and investments in marketable debt securities, as well as $600 million available to be withdrawn from their revolving credit facility. Additionally, they had $1.6 billion available to be withdrawn under their warehouse funding facilities to support funding of growth in their consumer receivables related to the Buy Now, Pay Later platform. All right, and now as always, the April trend and the forward-looking commentary. So as for the Square ecosystem, for the month of April in aggregate, Square GPV is expected to be up 29% year over year, and on a 3-year CAGR basis, GPV growth is expected to be 24% in April, compared to 22% growth in the first quarter. Cash App ecosystem in April, they expect Cash App gross profit excluding Afterpay to grow on a year-over-year and 3-year CAGR basis, driven by growth in monthly transacting actives, engagement across our ecosystem, and inflows in Cash App. And now, let's talk a bit about the earnings call. So hope that by now you understand why the stock was up after hours and now pre-market as well. Is because if you exclude Bitcoin and everything that's not really that important right now for the future of the company, you actually see that they're performing quite nicely, right? The uptrend is continuing, and with the economy reopening, it just makes sense for the business to do better and better each and every quarter. And now let's talk about two things they mentioned during the earnings call. One is again about Cash App, and the other one is about expansion outside of the United States. So the first question I want to focus on is from Darren Peller from Wolf Research. He talks about Cash App, the gross profit there beat their own estimations, the engagement, which was over 20 times per month, and the sequential improvements as the year progresses from here. He just wants a bit more details about that. So the CFO, future CEO, hopefully, who knows, will answer as follows. What you saw here in terms of growth in the first quarter, as well as leading into April with 85% growth on a 3-year CAGR basis, greater than 15% year over year, excluding Afterpay, continues to be very strong. I think a lot of it comes back to what we've shared around our inflow framework. These 3 key drivers of monetization win in Cash App. First, growing our active base. As of the end of December, we had over 44 million monthly actives. We continue to grow that quarter over quarter in Q1 and month over month into April. Second, inflows. We have continued to grow that as well. And again, I've talked about inflows from the start. This is very, very important. The more money that flows into the ecosystem, the better. We've had our strongest inflow quarter ever in Q1, and that's on the back of growing product adoption as well as growing engagement, as we noted in our remarks, and as you noted, strongest engagement month in March with 21 transactions during the month on average across our monthly base. And then finally, the third variable around monetization rate. This is effectively how much we charge on the inflows that come into our ecosystem. So I'll end the answer with this. As you know, we've been able to drive value across the products that we have and been able to flex pricing on some of them even more recently. Again, it's all about flexibility. We've talked about that with SoFi as well. As the ecosystem grows, as there's more products to offer, you can be extremely flexible with pricing. And the second question I want to talk about is from Lisa Ellis from MoffettNathanson. She talks about the international contribution. That's up 12% of GPV in the quarter. That's up, she thinks, 8% from a year ago. Then she wants to know a bit more about the international strategy here. So Jack, my dear friend, talks about that. So yes, of course, the global expansion remains our top priority for Square and also for Cash App. Well, that's great to hear. Now let's see how they execute on that. So we already know part of the answer because they told us already at the end of last year how, well, expanding internationally is going to be the number one goal for 2022. So how do they plan on doing this? Well, 3 approaches. Number 1, they invest in brand and product awareness to drive a broader understanding of the product capabilities to sellers within each of the 1 markets. Number 2, they focus on reaching product parity across all markets. And what this means is that we have all the products that we have in the United States. Ideally, we're launching them everywhere in the markets that we're currently in as well, which as of today is untrue. So that when Square Loans is in one market, it's also in all the markets that we currently exist in. So in Canada, in Q1, they launched Square Loans to better help sellers manage their cash flow. They also launched on-demand delivery. In Ireland, in Q1, they launched loyalty and Square marketing. And as he said in his openings remarks, in April, we launched our new Square stand to all of their e-markets. And that's exactly what we want to do more of. When we launch new features and new products, they go to all markets. Let's see how that goes. They're also looking at new markets. So this is the third part of their strategy. In January, they expanded into Spain and we brought buy now, pay later functionality to Square sellers in Australia and the United States. Well, actually, the expanding in the Spain already happened a long time ago with the acquisition of Verse, the P2P small company there, but maybe now it's just talking about the Square seller side. But then again, it's been a while since he talked about Spain, so it's great to have a little update here. And he ends by saying, so invest in the brand and product awareness, focus on making sure that all of their products exist in all markets and then expand in new markets as well. That constitutes their strategy and they're pushing really hard as this is their top priority. So to conclude this long video, obviously those last 2 points I mentioned that were from the earnings call are extremely important. Cash App is obviously why Square gets such a higher valuation, let's say, because, well, this is where the future of this company is like. The whole ecosystem based on Cash App, everything you can do with it, connected to your seller, connected to Afterpay, and the possibilities are endless. Now, touching on the last point that is extremely important here is the expansion, right? They say they want all products to be available in all markets. Well, that's clearly not true at the moment. Cash App in the UK can do maybe one thing that Cash App in the United States can do. Why would you download that app if you can download the likes of Monzo or Revolut? Just doesn't really make sense. So hopefully they fix that problem, because really brand awareness in Europe for Cash App or for Square is close to zero. In Canada, in Australia, that's much higher, I would assume, because, well, Afterpay is from Australia, and then Canada is just next to United States, and they have a bit more brand awareness there. Overall, stock might be up a little bit, maybe during the day it might be down because of the macro environment, etc. But overall, I think it was a good quarter, good earnings call as well. Do share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, maybe hit that subscribe button. Do check out those videos as well. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.